Most bad decisions don't start with bad people. They start with good people under pressure. It's shocking, but even kind people can justify harmful actions without realizing it. Psychologists call this moral disengagement, the brain's switch that disconnects actions from values. This switch flips when people feel threatened, insecure, or emotionally overwhelmed. In survival mode, morality steps aside, and self-protection takes control. Bad actions rarely happen suddenly. They start with tiny compromises. A small lie feels harmless until it becomes a habit. And then the mind tells a story. I had no choice. Anyone would do this. People defend their self-image, even when their actions don't match their values. This creates a blind spot. They see good intentions, not harmful outcomes. One powerful force is social pressure. People mirror the group to feel safe. When authority speaks, good people obey, often without questioning. Strong emotions hijack logic. Anger makes people justify hurting others. Fear narrows moral vision. When scared, people see only threats. People break rules to protect their identity, reputation, pride, status. When actions clash with values, the mind changes the story, not the behavior. One tiny unethical step makes the next one easier and easier. And slowly, a person becomes someone they never imagined. There's always a moment where thinking stops and impulse takes over. Environment shapes behavior more than personality. Even good people bend. The truth: humans are emotional creatures pretending to be rational. Understanding these forces isn't an excuse, it's clarity. And once you see the pattern, you start noticing it everywhere. Good people don't do bad things because they're evil. They do it because they're human. And understanding this is the first step to prevention. Bad behavior usually begins with one emotional trigger, a moment of hurt, fear, or insecurity. When emotions overload the brain, judgment shrinks. People act first, think later. With repeated stress, the brain becomes numb. Wrong feels less wrong. The mind builds excuses to protect self-image. I deserved this. They were unfair. When ego feels attacked, people retaliate, even if they normally wouldn't. Carl Jung called it the shadow, the parts of ourselves we deny but still act from. Sometimes good people hide desires they're ashamed of, until a moment of weakness reveals them. There's always that split second where the mind whispers, just this once. When people see others doing wrong without consequences, they copy it. Groups create their own morality, and individuals adapt to fit in. People project their insecurities onto others, turning imagined threats into real reactions. Once someone invests in a bad choice, they double down to avoid feeling wrong. When reflection stops, correction stops. People see their intentions, but others see their impact. What once felt wrong slowly becomes normal through repetition. To reduce guilt, the brain reframes harm as necessary or deserved. The more someone repeats a bad behavior, the more it becomes who they are. In burnout, empathy drops. People act cold, detached, and defensive. Even bad actions give small psychological rewards: control, relief, attention. But each action creates internal conflict, guilt fighting with desire. This drift is subtle, a slow shift away from who we used to be. After the action, regret floats in, but by then, the damage is done. At the core, humans are vulnerable, and vulnerability breeds mistakes. To understand why good people do bad things, we must understand the mind under pressure. Good people crumble when two values collide: loyalty versus honesty, fear versus integrity. When choices become overwhelming, the mind picks the easiest escape, not the right one. People rarely leap into wrongdoing. They slide into it quietly. Under stress, the brain distorts reality. Problems appear bigger. Options appear smaller. Fear pushes good people into self-protective and sometimes harmful decisions. When hurt, Even kind people retaliate to feel powerful again. People tie their identity to their choices. Admitting mistakes feels like losing themselves, so they hide behind masks, pretending to be okay while acting out of pain. In desperation, logic collapses. People do what they swore they never would. Bad actions often come from months of silent emotional buildup. Old wounds echo into present decisions, creating reactions that feel out of character. Each time someone ignores their moral boundary, it erodes a little more. People sometimes act out emotionally because they can't express what they truly feel. Moral fatigue sets in when good people get tired of always doing the right thing. Under pressure, people zoom in on problems and forget the bigger picture. When someone feels alone with their emotions, they may act out silently. Shame makes people hide mistakes, but hiding them often leads to bigger ones. There's always a breaking point where someone stops resisting temptation. Eventually, the mind convinces itself that the bad choice is the only choice. When emotions flood too deeply, morality gets submerged beneath them. And so, a person disconnects from their usual values, often without noticing. Humans want to be good, yet are driven by instincts that don't always support goodness. And the moment the consequences appear, it becomes clear how far they've slipped. To understand behavior, we must look beneath actions, into emotion, fear, and the fragile human mind. The brain loves shortcuts, and sometimes those shortcuts bypass morality. When emotions overpower logic, good people react, not reflect. Rationalization is subtle. It makes wrong choices feel smart. Stress lowers empathy. When empathy drops, harmful behavior rises. Sometimes people freeze, doing nothing until bad decisions become inevitable. Inside every person, values and impulses fight for control. Old emotional memories push people toward reactions they don't fully understand. Morality changes with environment. People adapt to survive. In groups, responsibility feels shared, so guilt feels smaller. When people see bad behavior tolerated, it becomes permission. Impulse is fast. Morality is slow. Most mistakes happen in that speed gap. People break character when their emotional script collapses. Neglected emotions grow in the dark and eventually control decision. Good people deceive themselves first before deceiving others. People think they're in control, even as emotion quietly drives them. We all have hidden motives, even ones we don't consciously admit. When everyone assumes someone else will act, no one does. The more harm people witness, the less shocking it becomes. People misplace anger, reacting to one person because of another. In strong emotion, people become temporary versions of themselves. The truth is simple. Humans break easily, even when they pretend to be strong. There's a moment when a decision becomes irreversible, even if regret follows. And then reality hits, the weight of what they've done. Understanding these emotional forces brings us closer to understanding human nature itself. After doing something wrong, good people don't feel pride, they feel shock. The mind struggles to hold two truths. I'm a good person, and I did a bad thing. Guilt creeps in quietly and becomes heavier the more it's ignored. To escape guilt, people invent reasons, even if those reasons are illusions. Regret echoes louder at night, when the world is silent and the mind is not. Once you understand the pattern, you start seeing why good people slip. Humans aren't good or bad. They're complex, and complexity can crack. We're all navigating life with a map that updates only after mistakes. What separates good people isn't perfection, it's their willingness to rise again. Healing begins the moment you stop denying and start understanding. Mistakes don't define character. Growth does. You can't become better by hating yourself. Change starts with compassion. And when you understand yourself, you finally understand why others struggle too. Empathy isn't excusing behavior, it's understanding the human behind it. True strength is choosing better, even when the past pulls you back. People rebuild themselves, not instantly, but decision by decision. In the end, every person must face their own truth, honestly. To be human is to struggle and to learn. That's our nature. So good people do bad things, not because they're evil, but because they're human. And understanding this may be the first step toward a more compassionate world. If this opened your perspective, you're already growing. Stay curious, stay aware, and stay kind. Because every mind has a deeper story, including yours. Thank you for watching.